The lights go out and I can't be saved. Tides that I try to swim against have brought me down upon my knees. Oh, I beg and plead, singing, come out of the things unsaid. Shoot an apple off my head, and a trouble that can't be named. A tiger's waiting to be tamed. Singing, you are, you confusion that never stops, the closing walls and ticking clocks. Gotta come back and take you home. I couldn't stop that, you now know. Come out upon my seas, curse this opportunities. And am I a part of the cure, or am I a part of the disease? Singing, you are, you are, you are, you are, you are, you and nothing else compares, nothing else compares, and nothing else compares. Ah, 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 you are, you are, you are, 'cause you are, you are. Home, home is where I wanted to go. Home is home, heart is where I wanted to go. Home is home, heart is where I wanted to go. And home is home, heart is where I wanted to go. And home is home, heart is where I wanted to go. And home is home, heart is where I wanted to go.
Beautiful. Wow.
Yeah,
That was really pretty. Who is that?
right. Her name is Arta Jacobson. She's from Arta, A-R-T-A.
Uh-huh.
Last name is Jacobson. I think it's Jekabsone. And she's a young vocalist from Latvia.
Wow, very beautiful.
Yeah, she's a really such warm voice that just feels like, I don't know, it's very, I'm somehow in my mind the word like rubber or something just like
Flexible.
flexible and then
Yeah.
just shiny and luscious. The way the words that come to my mind.
This is my guest, Rio Sakairi. It's so nice to have you on, and I'm really very honored that you came on, and I'm I'm eager to talk to you and to share you with people that I know.
Thank you for having me.
You know, something really struck out as I was reading through your bio, and
Mhm.
which was that you, I'm sure I'm misquoting it, but that you look for people who basically are being themselves, you know,
Right.
really being truly themselves as an artist.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's, I don't know, that just makes me like you already. But that
Yeah.
was a good example because that girl, she really is herself, isn't
Mhm.
she?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, it's such a cliche thing, right? To say like you have to be yourself and discover who you are,
Yeah.
and also, I mean, especially in jazz, I mean, I guess in any art form, but a lot of people talk about how, when you're learning this craft, it's okay to imitate, and
Yes.
that's how you learn. But at some point, you being you is your the that's your strengths, because nobody is you. But then there's so many layers to that as well, because even being who you are is, that in itself is a struggle to, I think, to understand who you are and how do you fit into the world. And that comes with the just living life and having experience. And I think that and it's the hardest thing too. And because we also want to be liked, we all have ego, and to be able to present oneself without care or concern of how that will be perceived, that's hard. But then I think that we often resonate with people who could do these things. This might be a little off topic, but even like, when you're scrolling through Instagram, and I like to look at women who will do a picture of like, themselves posing for the photo, but then they will put another picture of, but this is what I really look like. And, as a consumer of this information, when you're looking at it, like, oh, that's cool. But then would I ever be able to like do something like that, to, have a courage to like, well, I can make myself look nice, but this is really who I am. I don't know if I could do it. And I think that oftentimes, even, something, um, I I guess, simple as Instagram, we resonate with people who are really willing to show who they are. And I think that, that's what I mean. Like, and then this art in jazz, it's so easy to put the layer and walls and, just things to sort of disguise or just, hide behind a lot of things. But I guess there's a place for it too. I mean, I do enjoy, craftsmanship and technique, and when people wrestle with chord changes and rhythms, and those are fun too. But they don't give me the depth that, something that I want to, listen to over and over and over. I mean, the video that we just watched was Arta. That's something that she put together for this online program that we were doing during the quarantine. And and there are a few other videos that I ended up listening to so many times over and over and over, because it just feels good. And along with that question about what I'm looking for, people always like, so how do you decide like what, how do you measure these things? And you can't really measure them. It's really about what resonates with you. And And then I think this is a sort of a never-ending quest too. You know, as a human and as an artist, you know, I think the more it's yeah. And then, you know, this is a question that I like grapple with constantly, you know, as someone who runs the jazz gallery, and also, you know, me personally, like, who am I? What makes me happy? And how do I want to present myself? All these things. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of going off the tangent, but
No, it's okay. You're actually saying what I think and talk about every day, in various ways. I mean, I was on a group discussion yesterday, and it's classical and jazz people. It's a small group, about 8 people or so, and a very interesting conversation comes out of it. It's about art and creating art, and one of the younger violinists, who's excellent, she was saying, she was talking about how, like, how if you're going to play a dark and depressing piece and you're young, you know, how does that come up authentically? So that really led to a really interesting conversation. And this touches on the same subject, because it's talking about what we're made of as humans, and 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 how art is created, what is considered art, what moves us. I mean, all of those ideas that you're talking about they are what makes up every single day, you know. And I said this to Gail Boyd, a few weeks ago. I said, jazz to me is a religion, because it's something I practice and it brings me closer to God. And all of the stuff that you're talking about too is the same. It's the same makeup. It's deep. And how, I mean, you are obviously a person who not only leads in quality, because the proof is that you're recognized and that you're successful in what you're doing. So you're a person who's recognized for your taste and quality, but also it's a personal issue as well. It's what you like. But apparently there are many others who like what you like, because otherwise you wouldn't really, you know what I mean? You wouldn't be successful, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just for those people, I want to tell a little bit of a story. Hi, Bradley Young. Hi, John Prue. Wanted to say that that Rio is, and it's, you have a really interesting story, but really, and also I feel a little more connected because I've been going to Japan for 30 years, something like that, every year.
Oh, wow.
And I actually consider Japan my second home. So I feel a little more connected to you already, you know. But well, first of all, I wanted to tell people that Rio is the artistic director for the Jazz Gallery in New York. And she's been doing that for a while, and we'll hear more about that. But she's, as I said, she's recognized for her taste and quality and success. So that saying, you came here as a student, right? A music student, right?
No, I didn't come here as a music student. I actually came to go to new school, and I was just I was going to the liberal arts undergraduate program called Eugene Lang College, and I didn't particularly have. I thought that I wanted to study psychology eventually, but I didn't have a particularly focused goal as to what I wanted to pursue for life. And music has always been part of my life. I started playing piano when I was 4, and I was actually really good. But then my mother really pushed me to practice so hard that, when I became a teenager, I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And, I think that if I had a kind of mother who knows how to navigate, the children who hates practicing,
Yeah.
instead of like pushing me hard, I would have had a different life. But I
Yeah.
think that I look, in my mind, that was a destiny that I quit piano. But
Yeah.
then I also played in school orchestra and I conducted in choir, and, music was always part of my life.
Yeah.
And so I came to New York, just to go to school. But then I don't know what came over me, but I thought that, I was about 18, 19, and I thought, wow, I'm in New York and I think I want to take a voice lessons.
Oh.
So I started taking the voice lessons privately. And this teacher, she said, New School have a really good music program. You should audition. And I mean, now it's a little less so, but, in my the teenage years, I have a tendency to just jump into things without knowing what I'm jumping into. And so I looked it up, and New School has jazz and contemporary music, but in program. And I had no context as to, like, now I know that for a lot of young in high school kids who aspire to be a jazz musician, New School means something. But
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I'm just going to New School, one of the undergraduate program, and they have a music program, and I could just do a double degree. So, and I was thinking it was jazz and contemporary music program. I didn't know this was jazz and jazz program. So I auditioned and I got in, and I had no idea what I was getting into. And yeah, literally fell into jazz. And
Interesting.
yeah, it's quite embarrassing. But
Did
first
you
day of
did you listen to jazz before?
Not really. I
Hmm.
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
no. I
Okay.
mean, if you say Miles Davis, I had an idea of who that is,
Yeah.
or John Coltrane. I
So
know the name, but
it's interesting that you auditioned and you got in. You must have had a little bit of something for them to go, okay, yeah, jazz singer.
don't
No?
know. I mean, to this day, that remains a mystery
Uh,
to me.
that's
And then
funny.
I think I'll just chalk it up to that must be in a destiny,
Yeah.
to get to where I am today. That
Yeah.
somehow that had to happen, and universe, like, all right, I guess you just, I don't know, you're part of the program. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was quite a shock when I found out what I signed up for. I'm like, oh man, oh God, I'm in the
Right.
jazz program. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Hey, I'm sorry, I'm just curious. Where are you from in Japan?
I'm from Ibaraki.
Ibaraki. Is
Yeah.
that near Tokyo?
Yeah, there's Tokyo, and
Yeah.
then there's Chiba. Chiba is where the airport is, and
Yeah.
Ibaraki is the next prefecture over.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious. So you were in New York and you started taking vocal lessons. And then where did destiny lead you?
So, like as I was saying, I got into new school
Yeah.
program, and first day of the school of the semester, every single student have to perform in front of the teacher, so they know which ensemble to put you for the year. So I'm sitting in the auditorium waiting for my name to be called. My name was called. I got up on the stage, and Reggie Workman, who used to run the program, he goes, "So, do you know any standard?" So I was standing there thinking, that sounds like a terminology that I should know what it means, but I don't. So I'm just going to stand here looking like I know what's going on. But I was just like, I don't know what to do next. So nobody, and it was a rhythm section and me, and nobody's saying anything. So then Reggie finally goes, "Well, do you know Summertime?" I said, yeah, I could do that. And then at that point, I should have called out the key, decide on tempo and count off the tune, which I had no idea that was what was supposed to happen. So I'm standing there with a microphone in my hand thinking, okay, what's next? And drummer, he's actually currently very active on the scene, who will remain nameless here, he decided to count off the Summertime as a vocalist up here. And at that moment, I thought to myself, oh my God, what did I get myself into? So that's what happened. But then, because I played classical piano for a long time, and I was in school orchestra, and I had a very strong background in music itself, that I didn't really have any issue getting A's in classes. You know, I
Yeah.
knew theories. I could, you know, I could hear things. I could follow the music. And yes, my performance was not great, but, you know, I did well enough to graduate was, you know, decent grade. And this is where my, you know, I have a lot of question about the value of the jazz education in a conservatory setting,
Yeah.
because I was in it and I know that,
Yeah. I
yeah.
understand. Yeah. And I don't mean to cut you off. I spoke to Suzanne Pitson. Do you know her?
Mm-mm.
She's in New York. She teaches, she's head of the department at City College
Okay.
in New York. And she, unbelievably to me, because I've also kind of been a little bit involved in university programs, she's actually restructuring the program to have what you would, just from what you said, you would be impressed with what she's putting in, because we all know that it doesn't give the necessary basics to what you really need, you know. Anyway, so sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, no, not at all. But yeah. So, but I'm curious, like, how is she restructuring the program?
Yeah, well, let's see if I don't think I'm going to remember it very well, but she's putting in. Let's see. I can't remember, but it's impressive. I'll send you the link to her the interview that I had, and you can
Okay.
kind of move through it. It's probably about I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe halfway through, or maybe I can look through it a little bit and zero in on the area. But yeah, it's great. I'll connect you up with her. She's very smart. She's very nice too. Yeah, very humble person. You know. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So okay. So that was a great story. I love that. So
It's embarrassing.
oh no, I think it's great. I can just imagine it. You know. So, so then at some point, uh, I know that you were, well, I don't know how, if this jumps way ahead, but you were hanging out a lot at Jazz Gallery and giving your opinions, apparently.
No, actually, what happened was, okay, well, when you say my story is interesting, it's also, it's very, it's, it, you know, like you say, hindsight is 2020. And
Yes.
when I look at what happened in my life, it's sort of like everything happened to just really giving me a life experience and giving me a lesson doing things to bring me to the place where I can, you know, start something like Jazz Gallery and actually run it. So after I finished new school, I knew that I wasn't going to make a living performing, because like, okay, I yeah, graduated. I tried it. I suck at it. So that's not what happening, but I still had to make a living in New York. And I just got a regular job working at this cosmetic company. It's called Kiehl's. And I was there for 5 years. And now, you know, Kiehl's is owned by L'Oreal, and it's a big cosmetic, you know, part of the big cosmetic company. But when I was working there, it was a very small family owned business that started in 1851.
Oh,
And I worked for the third generation owner of this very small family-owned private cosmetic company that did like $10 million business, like that, you know, 30 years ago. And Kiehl's was such an anomaly in so many ways. The way this woman, Jamie, she ran the business, it was brilliant. I mean, this cosmetic company spent $0 on marketing. And she had other way to like sort of spread the word. And Kiehl's was the secret that everybody knew. Like everybody who knew of Kiehl's thought that, oh, I'm the only one, you know about Kiehl's. But everybody, you know, they had this sort of underground
yeah,
like feeling, and they has a
yeah.
cult following. Anyway, so I was there for 5 years, and because it was a small company, I worked in every single department, and I got to know the ins and out of how to run business. And also Jamie was huge on customer service. It was so important to her that everybody who walks into the kiosk are treated equally, fairly, with kindness and generosity. And she was very Spartan about us giving the good customer service, which, that's something I have learned, a lot from her. And I think that is really helped me to, the build this feeling of community and family that I come to foster at the Jazz Gallery, because to really understand like what makes people feel good and what makes people feel that they want to be part of something, and how important it is for the one-on-one transaction, because ultimately there's no mass doing anything. I mean, especially in the arts, it's ultimately it comes down to who yes, but it's more about how you know them. And then just it's about one person at a time, one transaction at a time, one concert at a time. It's really just building things slowly but steadily. Anyway, so while I was at Kiosk, I decided in 2000, I decided to take part in this fundraising event called Alaska AIDS Vaccine Ride, which you make a commitment to ride from Fairbanks to Anchorage, which is about 510 miles on bicycle, and have people sponsor you. So each rider had to raise at least $5,000 to be part of it. And if you don't raise $5,000, I had to go into my own pocket to, make up the difference. So I was doing everything I can to try to raise funds, but I was still short. And this, this is what, 2000. So this was before internet, this was before email. So I was like writing letters with the self-addressed stamp, envelope in the, and then I was just asking people, calling them, trying to have a party. And then at one point I thought to myself, oh, I should have a fundraising concert. So while working at Kiosk, I would still go out to different clubs and listen to music. And I have, I've been wanting to be part of the music, somehow work in music, but I didn't really know anybody. I don't know anything about music industry, but I just knew this is something I wanted to do, but I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so when I decided, I should do a fundraising concert to raise funds so that I could be part of this ride without going into my own pocket. Then I remember Dale Fitzgerald, who was the founder of the Jazz Gallery. And he was also a personal manager for Roy Hargrove. I met him through my first ex-husband, who is playing Roy's big band. And I remembered, there's this guy named Dale, and he had this space called the Jazz Gallery downtown. And I know he's not really like doing anything with it. Maybe he can let me use the space for me to put on the fundraising concert. So I called Dale, say, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but, my name is so-and-so, and this is what I'm doing. Do you think I can use the space to do the fundraising concert? He's like, they had the really deep voice, like, let's talk about this. Did you know him at all?
I did not, no.
Okay. He was he was a characterist, quite an understatement. But so I made a few friends back then in the music. And so I had Mark Carey agreed to play. James Hart said he will donate the performance. And there's an actress named Sarah Jones. She said, I could come and do something. This was when Sarah was just starting out at New York and Poet Cafe. And she just did her first one-woman show. Now, she's done things on Broadway. She's done things with Meryl Streep. She's quite a big time. But she's an amazing playwright and actress and poet. And she's like, I can come and do something for you. And then the vocalist from the rock band Living Color, Corey Glover, a friend of mine. He said, "Yeah, I can come and do something." I'm like, "Great!" So I had the musician and the program, and then now I have the jazz gallery. So I put on the events, and it went really well. And I think I raised about $2,500 in one night. So I'm like, okay, I could go to Alaska, and that's how I came to the jazz gallery. So after the thing, Dale was like, well, I need somebody to help me like run this place, just come and clean the bathroom and set up the stage and take the money at the door. And, is that something that, you would consider doing? I'm like, yes, this is my foot into the music business. And, this was 2000 when Dale wasn't really doing anything regularly because his idea was that he wanted to present jazz as a perspective, not only as a music. So he will have like the visual arts exhibit or poetry reading, and then he will pair the music with that. So he wasn't particularly, he loves jazz music, but he wasn't particularly focused on that. His training, he's an anthropologist by training. He got his PhD from UC Berkeley. And so he looked at jazz from that perspective. So he wasn't doing musical things on a regular basis. Back in 2000, only thing he was doing was Jazz Cubano, which is a series that happened every Thursday. Was Yosvani Terry will lead the group with Luis Perdomo, John Benitez, and Daphne Prieto. And Yosvani will bring different guests every week. And this was when all these people were just basically nobody knew who they were. They was just, and I tell this story all the time, but when I met Daphne in 2000, I thought that he was a very quiet person because he barely says hello, and turned out that he didn't know any English. That's why he was quiet. And now that he's fluent in English, he likes to talk. He's a very energetic person who has a lot to say. But I'm like, definitely is very quiet. I'm like, no, that wasn't the case. Anyway, so I started coming there every Thursday night to help out, just set up the place, set up the stage, and I would sit at the door and take the money. And I was really excited. I'm like, I'm working in the music venue, I'm making it happen for myself. And so this was the time when artists wants a gig at any venue, they would send the packet was cassette or CD, was the bio and press clipping, and they put it in the big envelope and send it to you.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I found this big box in the corner of the office because Dale was just busy taking care of Roy Hargrove, and Roy's, he's a handful. Yeah. So he just, he never got through these envelopes. So I started, in between things that I had to do to for the gallery, I would just start putting in CD, listening to the submission and reading their bios and whatnot. So then I will say to Dale, hey, this guy Vijay, he sounds kind of good. Like, we should book him. I think there's a package from Rudrish Mahantapa, Jean-Michel Pilk. Those were in the pile. And there's like, oh, you think so? And then so in the beginning, we'll just like sit around, listen to different CD, and we just, we call people to, book a gig because very few people had email back then. So you had to call them.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Yeah. And so then eventually, and then Dale had other responsibility. So he, when he gets busy, he just kind of like, Rio got this. And then I think at one point he's like, he didn't say it, do it, whatever you want, but not in those words.
Yeah. But
he left me in charge of what happens on Jazz Gallery stage. And that's how this started. And, I think this is where, again, I will use the word destiny, but there's no Jazz Gallery was one of Dale's big dreams. And there's no rhyme or reason why he should have trusted this young girl, from foreign country, that there's no reason why he should have trusted me the way he did, but he did. And I just, every time I think about it, I feel like, I'm always been helped and protected, to get to where I wanted to go. Doesn't mean I didn't have to work for it, but there's a little nudge here and there that, things beyond my control that I always felt like guided.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. I mean, it's just, boy, I think that's just a great story, and very inspirational for people to hear, because most of the people I've talked to over this last year have said basically that they started moving and they just kept putting one foot in front of the other, and then things happened. Whether or not they really saw exactly what was going to happen, and so I think it's a great story, and I love hearing about Vijay and people like that who now are, recognized, highly recognized, and it's the beginning, and it's great because, of course, history is. We're making history right now, and we'll look back, and then it'll be history, But
right.
up until then, it's the experience, and I just think it's so valuable I think it's really valuable for people to hear that, no matter what they do in life, but especially for artists and musicians,
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting too that your taste in jazz was pretty progressive, right?
I don't know if I will describe it as progressive because I like everything that's good. And I know that sounds really vague, but, one of the things that, from the beginning that I was mindful was, to this day is that, jazz in 2000 goes from all the way there to all the way there.
Yeah.
And I did not want to be restricted by how people understand and present jazz, but I wanted to focus on how those music made me feel. So I would do things, on the left, people like Henry Threadgill, I'm blanking on the name, but I like things in the middle, the center too. I like all of it, and I think that, I guess, in some ways that could be considered progressive because I didn't have a gender as to, what style of jazz is valid.
Yeah.
But it was more about how good does that feel? I don't know. But then this is a question I struggle with all the time. What is jazz? What's not jazz? And, I've been doing this for 20 years. And this is a question that comes up constantly. And I don't have an answer. And then
it's kind of annoying to me after a while. And like when people say, "Oh, jazz is dead," it's like, no, you couldn't be wronger. Jazz is not dead. Jazz, just by what it is, it reflects the times.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. One time, long time ago, I read this quote: "Future needs jazz more than jazz needs future." And I think it's true. And, I think what Dale was saying about jazz is a perspective and jazz is a way you approach things. And in that, jazz could teach us so many things about, jazz is really the prototype of what true democracy looks like. Everybody have their own voice. We have to really listen to each other. Sometimes we embrace dissonance. When things are not in the pretty harmony, we still embrace that, and then we make sense of it by what creating the context for what happened. And there's such a metaphor in how we should live with each other. Not to be whatever, but. but then, I think when I say struggle is because like jazz has this ability to take in other things and expand and digest it. But I feel like sometimes it goes a little too far. And, for a long time, I didn't really understand why Wynton Marsalis changed his direction the way he did. Because like in 90s, he had, Think One, Black Coast, he was going somewhere, and then all of a sudden he stopped and turned back, and he came to the middle of the center. And for a long time, I'm like, I don't know why he's doing that. But then several years ago, I had an opportunity to go to Poland. I was invited to go check out this festival in Poland. And what was happening there was disheartening to me, that I was like, you can do whatever you want to do, and you can call it whatever you want, but please don't call that jazz. And the way they thought that they were playing jazz didn't have clear. I mean, I dealt with a lot of musicians who play free, which free is not a good terminology, because when people on the left side, the more freer musicians do things, there's a certain language and approach to it. It's not free. It's just different from traditional language, but that doesn't necessarily mean free, because sometimes you find more freedom within confinement.
Yeah.
So then, and then the freedom in the context is sometimes even more petrifying. But anyway, so what I heard in Poland, it was just so far away from the pulse of jazz in the way that it made me really sad. And in that, because, I'm spoiled, like I spent my time in New York City and I'm surrounded by amazing musicians. So I didn't understand what was happening outside of New York, outside of United States, and what people were doing with jazz. And in that moment, I understood, oh, this is why Wynton took it upon himself to create the center of this thing, because everything has to have a center to be something. If you just say, oh, it's free, anything goes, and it becomes nothing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that,
totally.
I think it's really brave of Wynton to designate, because he understands the position he has within the scene.
Yeah.
And he didn't have to take that position, but he also understood that this art, yes, the expansion and growth and change is the nature of this music, and going against the status quo is nature of this music. It's in this DNA, but at the same time, that have to make sense. There has to be a lineage. You can't just sort of like, oh, I'm just doing whatever and then call it jazz.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't know. So then in that sense, I continuously struggle with like, like what does it mean to be a jazz musician in 2021? And probably I will, keep struggling until the day I die. But then somebody one time said to me, but that struggle itself also is jazz.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
Know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's part of the process. Well, that brings up my thoughts about Japan too, and no better person to speak to about it. I mean, let's see, I started going to Japan in 79. So I've seen a lot of growth there. Like when I was first there, the bass players were the outstanding players. They were classically trained, and they just I don't know why, but through that instrument, they really they were the basis for everybody to be on. The piano players were great, but they were copying. And then the drummers, oh my God, the drummers drove me absolutely crazy. They'd play something great for 8 bars, and then they'd totally change to something else for another 8 bars and totally change again. It was really not fun. The drummers were really obnoxious in that way. But then over the next, 10 years or so, I really saw a change, and it was probably mostly the younger people coming up, and wow, then, in the last 10 or 15 years, I've seen some amazing, wonderful things, including the vocalists too, because, the vocalists were in there too. They were really kind of standard and straight and copying, But now there are some super creative people that I've seen there. And oftentimes, people would pose the question to me, why do you think Japan loves jazz so much? Because it's kind of known, oh yeah, Japan is really into jazz. Well, yeah, as far as a percentage, it's probably the smaller percentage of the overall people. But I always equated it to that the Japanese culture had a respect for art, and also just the lifestyle of, I don't know it totally deeply, but the lifestyle, kind of like American Indians. It's like the respect of nature, farmers. That's my favorite place to go in Japan, is out of the cities, kind of into the farmlands and hang out with the people there and the artists. So I just thought that was part of it as well, like the understanding of art, the understanding, like you said, freedom within a structure. You have a small space outside the back of your house, and what do? You create a garden that is, you create a garden that is like a world all in itself, like a universe. So that kind of thing doesn't really happen in the US. That's not the standard way of thinking,
Right. Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Honestly, I don't know.
You don't have a take on it?
Well, the thing is, because I left Japan when I was 18, which was 31 years ago.
Yeah.
And I spent more time here. And one thing that I would say is that, early arts education is outstanding in Japan. So then I feel like the soils are already turned for something to, make people appreciate different kind of arts, because, and this is something that I talk about all the time, because, every time I do some grants adjudication and all this foundation, they were not actually. Well, they always talk about marketing, like how can we market this arts better? And then, I think for any type of really creative arts, the commercial marketing is not going to really do anything, because you can, convince somebody who like strawberry ice cream to all of a sudden like vanilla ice cream through a campaign. Tasting music is just so ingrained in you like that. And I think that the true marketing for creative arts is early arts education. And you have to look at it 10-year, 20-year span. So then, it kind of makes sense that why this music is more enjoyed in places where educational system embraces, like arts in general. And I'm sure this, you see you go there all the time. Like when I was coming up, first grader and second grader, we all have to learn how to play diatonic harmonica and play something in key of C and play with everybody. And, third to sixth grade soprano recorder and so on. And art is not elective until you go to high school. Like you're forced to do everything. Yeah. And then, if you're good at it, it's really no big deal. But I think especially if you struggle through these classes, you understand that to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the simple instruments, you have to have so many skills and like use those things all at once and listen at the same time. It's a lot of exhausting thing. And then when you went through that experience, with your body, you have understanding and appreciation for things, later a year when you see John Coltrane going into like his zone, you wouldn't say, oh, he's just noodling. Yeah. You will think that I don't understand what's happening, but I know that it's a lot of work to produce a good sound on the instrument that looks complicated. It gives you a point of entry into art form because you have done it. And then, like for me, visual arts, like I struggle, they make you do everything, like literally watercolor, oil painting, sculpture, to do, what do you call it? The clay, the pottery.
Yeah.
And I struggle through everything. So then when I see, I don't know, like Jackson Pollock and Matt, I don't think he's just going like this and this is bullshit. I understand that for someone to create the work like that on the large scale, there's something special happening. But if you never, done anything on your own, you don't have that understanding. And I think that I feel like that's a big part of it. Why people enjoy jazz in, like Europe, in Japan, I think is, Israel, another place that really good with jazz. And, so then I'm thinking, does this mean I'm going to start an educational program here? I don't really want to, but, but then, in order to like secure the this music, have people to like enjoy and consume and, practice.
Yeah.
I feel like I guess I should think about doing some sort of work that will turn up the soil and sow some seeds. But, I feel like that's a big part of it.
There's a singer, I don't know if you know her, Alexis Vasiliou. Do you know her?
Where's she from?
She's from not Greece, but um, that area.
Okay.
I forget the name, but she's spent time in New York and Boston and LA. She's quite revered in that area of the world, and she did something really interesting. Because where she's from, she is. Oh gosh, I'm sorry, I have a little bit of COVID brain. Um, she is. I forget the name. It's a person who is thrown out of where they live. Not, I don't mean evicted. I mean like literally the area, the whole area. They're, it's like a people that is thrown out of.
Oh, like displaced.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was her history, and so she has started a few organizations, and she's also connected to the UN as a presenter, and she.
Oh, like a refugee.
Refugee, thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. And but one thing she did, which was amazing, was she created a program for schools, for elementary schools. Thank you, LM. Yes. So she created a a program for schools. So, I guess there's music in between classes, let's say, the break is at 10 of 12 and then, you're going to your class, and there's rock and pop and whatever there is, crapola on the on the intercom. So she created a radio program that she puts into the schools of classical and jazz.
Oh, wow.
So and she got grants for it, and she accomplished it on a large scale, and I just thought that was so amazing. It's a little bit like what you're speaking of, I even struggle with that with my grandchildren. They're very young. They never listen to jazz because their parents aren't into jazz, and my husband is, we always joke because my husband's into rock and roll. So, there's this big joke, and I want to figure out how to ingest it in them. And now with the pandemics, they're not really coming over here and hanging out. So I have to figure out entertaining ways to trick them into listening, other art programs are kind of big for them at this age. That one is 4 and one is 8, So, but it's, I can totally understand what you're saying, and I totally agree. I think that is a huge area, and it drives me absolutely berserk when the government takes away funding for art. I just don't get what planet they're from. They just don't, for them not to get get what it does is just it's either evil or other planetary.
Right,
You
right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I often go to the cynical place of, oh, they don't want the citizen who can think for
Think for
themselves and
themselves. Yeah.
functional. They want just, head count.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, yeah, I mean, when my kids are little, I forced them to take piano and they absolutely hated it. But I said, well, this will help you do math better. So you learn how to play piano.
Probably true, right?
And they're like, Mommy, my math is fine. I'm like, well, could be better. But yeah.
Well, could we see a little more of the jazz gallery stuff that's okay to
Oh
play?
yeah, sure. Let's see. I'm just going. Sorry. I'm gonna look for a video.
So again,
It's
for those who just came in, possibly Rio is the artistic director for the Jazz Gallery in New York, and what? By the way, what's happening with the Jazz Gallery right now? Anything?
So like the first video I show is from the lockdown sessions, which is, I like to call it Jazz MTV. So each week we have 4 artists. So I purposely put together artists, of the different generation and different style of jazz,
Yeah,
so that there'll be a discovery amongst artists,
yeah,
with each other. And also it will create the opportunity for audience because, people often tend to listen to things that they like and they rarely venture out into things that they don't like.
yeah,
But then, in this format, they have to listen to people they don't usually listen to. And I wanted to create the opportunity to like people to still connect and have a sense of community. So, and also I'm not crazy about live streaming because it loses something in translation.
yeah,
I mean, yes, we have been doing live streaming since last June every week. And, now we have people tuning in from all over the world, which is great. But also, I know that watching things through the internet, I mean, the internet also different from TV too. Just the translation and things get lost, and internet it's a unique thing. And I mean, my reference is that, so, like I was saying, Roy Hargrove is one of the founder of the Jazz Gallery. And I don't know if you ever seen him live, but when
yes,
Roy's on, it feels like just the room is lifted a little bit and the air expands. You have this like that feeling, and Roy has a couple of, really good albums, but none of these albums capture that like that feeling.
yeah,
And even if you watch the video of, some of the concert, it's great, but it's not like being in the same room. It's like, oh, I'm so happy to be in this room right now. I'm alive at the same time. This is happening. It doesn't have that feeling.
yeah,
So then like when Roy passed away, I realized that, all these other artists who died, even before I came to New York,
yeah,
like, I don't know, Miles, Train, all these people I thought that I knew, I realized that, I never really knew them because I never seen them live.
yeah,
And so then, live streaming it's a little tricky to me in that people are thinking this is live and I'm watching it on my computer as it's happening. So I'm experiencing this artist, but in my mind, not really. Like until you see someone live, you really haven't experienced the artist. And as a presenter and producer, it's slightly disheartening that I'm presenting the artist that I work with in less than best light.
yeah,
But again, because we're in
yeah.
quarantine, so this is what we have to
And
do.
that, this relates back to what you were saying about, people taking a really beautiful picture, right? And then just showing how they really look every day.
Yeah,
So it kind
yeah.
of, I mean, I've had that feeling too over the
Mm-hmm.
last year. I mean, some of it I'm like, well, that was a little under,
Mm-hmm.
what you really should have presented.
Mm-hmm.
Even on that level, like the real level is, you know, I mean, at least you got to do what you can really do.
Right,
But
right.
but I totally get it, of course, because I'm an artist and a producer, you know, and so yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah.
And I've also seen some playing that I've been totally struck with because the music has just totally reached out through the airwaves, you know. I don't know if you know these people. They live in New York. They're from Poland. And their name is the singer is Bogna Kitchinska and Jacob Chikotsky.
I
And
don't know them.
husband and wife. She's a singer and he's a pianist.
I'm sorry.
I see that hand.
My son is like,
So when the piano player, like, and this is of course how you really can recognize, oh, this is going to be good. You know, hands on the piano, the first thing you hear, you're like, oh my God, right? You totally got it. And then when the piece was amazing and her singing was so pure, beautiful, from the heart, so technically great. And the two of them, I mean, I was totally blown away. So it is possible, but I think it takes a lot more. And what you're speaking of is the specialness of the live communication and what the audience can contribute and get, you know, and
oh
the
yeah,
electricity
totally.
in the air. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was I created lockdown session initially because we couldn't be in the same room at all, even to the live streaming, but also if artists can create the video before, you know, they put it on the airwave, they have a complete control over creating something that it will withstand the internet washing machine, you know. So then they don't have to, because when you're doing live streaming, it's also like a little bit, it's like a rolling a dice. I don't know how this will, you know, you don't have a reaction. You don't know how people are going to react to it. You don't know what kind of device they're using on their end to listen to the, you know, experience. And, you know, they might be listening on their iPhone and think, God, they sound crappy, which is totally unfair. But so I wanted to create the forum where artists have a little bit more of control, but also, the other side of that is another dimension is that I wanted jazz artists to understand that majority of audience listen to their music with their eyes, not with their ears. And, you know, I think a lot of jazz artists ignore that factor. And then they would say, well, this is art. You should just appreciate it. I'm like, yes, it is. But why not make it easier for people? Why not, you know, if you're learning to manipulate the visual aspect and create more dimension to the experience so that people can get into your music, why not? You know, and I think that, I mean, before the pandemic, I used to talk about how people, you know, dress and how they look on the stage and how to like stand on the stage. And, you know, I don't mean, you know, for people to wear suits. What I meant was I want the artist to put a thought into what you wear. Like if you're wearing the, you know, like dirty t-shirts and tattered jeans makes sense with your music and that's what you thought, I'm great with that. You know, I love the fact that you put a thought into this concert as a multi-sensory experience, not just music, because, you know, and there's reason why MTV was wildly successful because we liked, you know, the visual is a huge thing. And, you know, the way I do a lot of masterclass with young artists, and the way I explain is that just because you are serving amazing food, you don't put that on the paper plate and put it on the fold out chair. You know, there's a reason why Michelin star restaurant, you know, would decorate the space in a certain way, have a certain kind of plate and certain kind of music and the lighting and how the waiter talks to you. all of that contribute to how the food tastes on the plate.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, food has to be good, but that could be enhanced in multiple ways. And I want an artist to understand that side of it. So, and then in the other side is that, like I said earlier, by lockdown sessions, we can actually hang with each other. And that part was really fun.
Yeah.
So the video that I played in the very beginning was, from one of those lockdown sessions. And then other interesting thing is that, so then artists, have to do everything by themselves. The contents, think about the contents and play it and, put the video to it, edit it. And you get to see the other side of artists that you don't get to see on stage. So then I think that maybe I will play something funny. Let's see, maybe I'll play this one. Hold on. Okay, so this is a video created by Clarence Penn. He's a drummer. And share. All right.
salad to make, but very tasty. You ready to do it? Yeah. Act like you don't eat the grapefruit.
That's literally thinking.
Alright. Okay, I gotta get a bowl. It's a big bowl, but alright. Let's go. Alright, so what I want you to do now is make matchsticks out of the jicama.
So basically slice them like this.
But small. That's too big. So you want to go, see, like that? That's a matchstick.
Okay.
Like that. Cut off the round end. Like that, right? And we'll save this because this is good to put in the salad to make it look pretty. Right?
Make my hair look pretty. Juiciness. I thought that was finished.
It is. But the tops are called fronds. You're gonna do, you know how to zest it?
Yes.
Yeah, like your finger. And I'm gonna get the honey because we need something sweet. We need something sweet, and with something sweet, we need something salty.
Yeah, because
Salt.
when you add salt to brownies.
All right, now pepper. Perfect.
I'm gonna mix it up.
Yep, we're gonna mix it up.
Just mix it up. Make sure we get all
A little bit more
seasoning.
olive oil. We need a little more. Really. That looks good.
Yum.
So this is the finished product.
Fennel, pear, jicama, grapefruit, finished with pomegranate.
I'm gonna taste
And then
she'll be down, hoping she'll be down. I'm on the loose, I don't like it. Take my advice, if you find the one, hold on tight. Don't let her, don't let her, don't let her go. You better hold on to her tight. Don't you let her go. Don't let her go. It's so hard to find the one you love. Hold on one tight.
All right.
Wow.
So
cool.
next we're gonna make.
I'm gonna stop it right here.
Oh man. That's
Yeah,
cool.
so some of them incorporate their families and put in their music with things that they love. And a couple weeks ago, I had this young saxophonist, Noah Becker, and what he did was really cool because so he wrote the music first and he recorded it, and as he was listening back to the recording, he did this painting, and then he also taped himself ripping up the painting that he did. So then he edited the video. On left side is painting is going, the tape is going backward, this is going forward, and then at the end of it just all the painting becomes nothing. I mean, you get to see different side of the artist, and those has been really fun. And we just did the 40th episode of Lockdown Session yesterday.
Oh, cool.
So there has been about 104 times, so like 160 videos done by 160 artists, and that's been really interesting and fun. I mean, there's so many more that I like to play because these are very creative people that and I didn't tell them what to do. It just have to be 5 to 10 minutes. You can do anything. And some people just tape video themselves playing music. Some people just went way above and beyond, and it's been really fun. And actually, I'm trying to post more of it on the Jazz Gallery's YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/the Jazz Gallery. So you can watch more of these videos later.
Yeah,
it's really entertaining.
So you can see what's already been done too, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I know where I'm going to be spending my evenings. Boy, that was really great. And 160, that's awesome. I mean, you are number 268 for me. And I was just thinking, did you speak at the jazz conference last year? Or the year
person?
before? Yeah, did you speak on a panel?
I don't think so. Okay. I don't usually get called for these things.
Yeah, well, whatever.
But I don't remember. Yeah. The last time was maybe 3-4 years ago.
Okay. I've been going for a few years and I really like it. It reminds me of the the old IAJE, which was just it was just my favorite time of year, just great 4 days of hanging and partying with people and meeting people and hearing music, and it was really a fun time. And then of course the jazz conferences in New York, which just makes it all the better because I don't get to spend a lot of time in New York, so that like I think it was 3 or 4 days, that's really nice too for me. But back to the Jazz Gallery, those are really, I think those are really fulfilling to watch.
Oh yeah, totally. Definitely. Yeah. And also so like I said, each session has 4 different artists. So then, I make a point, I try to book people that I know that they don't know each other. Oh, and also with different styles. So then, after that, I might have somebody who's like really avant-garde, but then it's fun to listen to jazz musicians talk about each other and music, because I mean, this, but most jazz musician has huge ears and they really like to listen to everything, and they have such appetite and understanding, and it's fun to like watch them make connection with each other, and sort of like learn from each other's music and get some ideas and get inspired. So yeah, and I think that the our executive director Janice, she's like, this is like listening, you being on the fly on the wall in the green room, like this is what they must, how they talk to each other, and it's like, it's kind of like that. So I think it's really fun for audience too to get an insight into the artists that they like, because you don't get to see that on stage.
Yeah. So all the four people are on one
One
shooting.
episode, yeah.
And what day of the week is it? Is it always the same?
It used to be, I think, on the weekend, and then once weather got better, we moved it to Monday. But I think one from yesterday is going to be the last one for a little while. I want to reconfigure the whole thing, because now we're starting to open the venue in person as well. So that's going to take a lot of effort. And then I think, people are generally sick and tired of being online and being on Zoom.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I first started doing lockdown sessions, it was a paid event and I will have like 150 people tuning in. But as the time went on, there's so much content on internet and things are starting to open up. So then, we moved to donation basis, just so that, there'll be more audience and there'll be more, the discovery of new music. And I think that now the weather is picking up and a lot of places are opening up. I think that I want to change that format into more of I want to make it into an educational program. I need to write a grant to find the funding. But what I was thinking was that maybe put together a young jazz musician with, the one thing about New York is that there are starving artists of all kinds.
Yeah.
And so I will, the jazz musician was maybe film student from NYU and design student from Parsons. And then they will get together and actually make a polished music video. And then they will put on online something, more like the teaching program. That's what I'm thinking. So,
interesting direction.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of work, but it's
I think
really
they know.
worth it.
Yeah, and I think it will help reach people who are not crazy about music, but the visual.
Yeah.
I don't want to say soften the blow, but it's definitely more interesting for lay people. You. Yeah.
I totally agree. I put out 4 singles since the summer from a project that's on the shelf, but I mean, I've been working on it with the hopes that I can release it in July. But I decided to try singles because I hadn't, I was just curious what that experience was. And right at the beginning, I started with my new record had been 2 fantastic bands that the music was kind of covered from the 60s to the 90s, some of my favorite songs. And so I started with Marvin Gaye, Make Me Wanna Holler. You know that song?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I don't know why I decided to make an iMovie, and I loved the process. It kind of reminded me of being in the studio, a recording studio, and but it was different. But it just reminded me of that, listen, experience what you like, pick out lots of pictures that indicate to you, and then put them in there, and then shift around and timing, and so I have been really enjoying that process,
Yeah.
and so yeah, and I feel like, I mean, just watching that video was really great, and I haven't moved into heavy technology, so I don't know how much I could do, but that was inspiring, just me seeing that. And I definitely definitely know that people were drawn to this Single with the Eye movie. You know,
Yeah.
they really, it pulled them in. It was something together with the music and the visual was really, it worked, you
Yeah.
know. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. And then, people remember you more,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even with Clarence, if somebody, because I think that he put that on his YouTube channel. And if, somebody said, maybe they're looking something to do like 3 months from now, and they see Clarence, they don't know much about jazz, but they see Clarence's name. Oh, remember the cooking video? That was that guy. If that's the entry point for people to, come, buy ticket to come see you, why not,
Yeah. 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 That's great. I loved his music too. It was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
So,
great. Um, so, um, what, how do you gather your tribe around you? Who makes up your tribe? Is it, you mentioned an assistant. Are there assistants that you have, or are there musicians that help?
um, tribe as in like the jazz gallery. I mean, this is something
Or
that happened.
yeah, the jazz gallery or anything you're doing. I don't know if there's other. I would imagine you have other things going on too, but the jazz gallery is your major focus. Is that correct?
Well, it's like when I do masterclass, kids always ask me, so how'd you get a job at the jazz gallery? I didn't get a job at the jazz gallery. I made the jazz gallery from scratch. So like my life sort of, a jazz gallery is my first baby before I had actual human babies. And, I don't really have a line between work and play. It's all the same for me. So then
Yeah.
even when I'm not working, I'm always thinking, I mean, like everything I do feeds each other, So then there's my relationship with friends and community. It's all, all overlapping, and everything sort of happened sort of in organic way. I mean, when I started working at the Jazz Gallery, it was pretty much me and Dale for a long time. And I
Dale is
talk about,
gone, I assume.
yeah, it's been about 6 years, five
And
years, 6 years.
so, who took his position over? Or he was the owner of it, or
Well,
is that
we run
correct?
as a not-for-profit, so he
Oh,
was the executive director. And while Dale was sick, he had cancer, so that he wanted to focus on the treatment towards the end of his life. So then we we hired someone to be executive director who was not a good fit. And then because this person was not a good fit, we almost went out of business. I mean, I talk about this in the interview that I posted on my blog, but there are so many moments in Jazz Gallery that, when I was going through it, like I'm a type of person, it's gonna be fine. I'm optimistic to a point that some people consider me irresponsible, but
yeah,
I always thought the thing was gonna be fine, and it's fine. And now I'm actually making living, running the Jazz Gallery. But looking back, when I was doing an interview and I was telling Ashley Khan this story about, some of the hard times that I went through personally, and Jazz Gallery went through, and I went through the hard time because I was, trying to do the Jazz Gallery. And there was a moment during the interview, I'm like, what did I think that was okay? I mean, it was just, talk about walking on the tightrope was shocking. I mean, I remember one time I had $20 in my wallet. That's all I had. And, I had all kinds of debts, credit card, whatnot. And my ex-husband was not due home for like 3 days, and, from the tour. And I had toddler and the baby. And I'm like, all right, I take $5 to gas my car, and if I'll have a $15 to feed us next 3 days, it'll be fine. Like, I don't know why it was. I mean, same thing as the Jazz Gallery in the beginning. Every month, Dale will say, "Yeah, because and then Dale was an amazing scholar and great, person. But the number and finances was not his forte. So then what I ended up doing, he would just like put his own money to like float the jazz gallery. And at the end of the month, he would say, "Oh, I don't know if we could do this next month." I was like, "Come on, Dale, we could do this. It's okay." And, I'm not even thinking it's Dale's money that, that we're using to like keep the jazz gallery afloat. I mean, since then, the gallery actually paid him back in full, before he checked out. But yeah, so I don't know why I'm saying this. But so then, like everything just for a long time, it was just really focusing on what's all happening that week, what's happening on that day. And I think that I have been very lucky in people sort of rallying around the jazz gallery, wanting to be part of it, wanted to help. And especially the current executive director, when Janet came on board, she didn't know much about jazz, but she has a lot of experience in running the the not-for-profit organization. And her financial acumen is very, very strong. And she pulled us out of the shithole financial situation that we're in. And now we have, after the Euro pandemic, we're fine, which is, incredible.
Amazing,
it's a team effort. I mean, yes, I created the program that people resonated to, and, we actually increased the membership and all of that. But none of that would have happened without Janet's, ability to just build the organization. And she really did an amazing job, in getting the board of director involved. And then as far as, so I'm very lucky in that I didn't come to the organization for a job. And this is something I created, and people gather around the jazz gallery because they like what's happening. So then it's very, they let me do whatever I want to do, which is amazing. And also we really work together for a common goal, which is to just create opportunity for music to be played, and, for people to come and be part of this experience. And so I actually don't have an assistant because we don't have a budget for it. But we have there's Janet, there's me, there's Narissa, who's a marketing and graphic person. And then Edward he runs the production. And recently we're able to hire a development person to take care of fundraising. And, considering from the time me and Dale was doing everything, now there are 5 people, and then everybody's role is a little bit more defined, which is amazing to me, because I remember days where I was doing everything, and, I made $50 a week. So, but then I was so happy doing it too. I'm like, I'm in music business,
Yeah, see,
So,
I find that fascinating. And I just want to tell you, if I was in New York, I'd be on your team. Because all of that really, I love all of that so much. And I've created a lot of venues here, although my venues haven't lasted as long as your venue is. But I've created some really great venues. And and I realized a long time ago that I like creating things that are good for me and other people. I don't get as much joy out of creating something that's great just for me. I like when everybody wins.
yeah.
And I've never been into the kind of competition that's the death kind of competition. It's more like, oh, hey, you got that gig, I could get that gig. It's not, hey, you got that gig, you shouldn't have that gig. It's not that kind of competition.
Right.
And like you also, I have the glass half full kind of attitude. One of the last series that I created that ran for 2.5 years downtown, I spoke to a jazz drummer, and I said, I told him the story, and I thought it was really good, and it had nice parking that you had to pay $7 for and everything. He said, oh, people will never pay $7 for parking. And I'm like, what? That is stupid and crazy.
Yeah.
Jazz is, at least good as rock and better. I mean, people to go out and spend $50 to get in and have a meal and all that, and pay $7 for parking. Come on, So, yeah. So I can really appreciate what you're doing, and yep, if I lived in New York, I'd be right in there with you.
Thank you.
So, all in all, how long has the Jazz Gallery been going?
So 2020 was supposed to be our 25th anniversary. And we had a special event planned all year long, which, 90% of them had to get canceled. But we did, one of the things that we were planning was back in 2010, I created this group that we just call it Jazz Gallery All Stars, because George Wing, when he was doing the JVC Jazz Festival in New York, he gave me, okay, I give you a symphony space, which is like a 700 seaters on the Upper West Side. I give you the room on this day, so do whatever, do something.
Yeah.
So then I put together a band, sort of alumni and current, roster of the Jazz Gallery, artists. So back then it was Roy Hargrove, Ambrose Akinmusiri, Miguel Sinon, Gerald Clayton, Ben Williams, Kendrick Scott, Claudia Cunha, and Pedro Martinez, and Lagalund. And then, we just call it Jazz Gallery All Stars, and it went really well. So then people were like, oh, you should tour the band. But in 2010, we just didn't have resources to make that happen.
Yeah.
So then in 2020, I'm like, oh, I want to put together a new rendition of Jazz Gallery All Stars. And I want to tour that to be ambassador of the Jazz Gallery. So for this time, we had Gerald Clayton, Ben Williams, Kendrick Scott. Gerald Clayton, Linda O, Kendrick Scott, was Miguel Sinon, Morgan Guerin, who is a young tenor player. I mean, Morgan is the everything player because he plays everything.
Yeah.
Was Charles Otoro on guitar, and then Renee Neuville, and then Joel Rose on vibraphone, and Renee Neuville on vocal. And we had a tour set up in the US. We were supposed to go to Tokyo. We were supposed to do Newport Jazz Festival. All of that got canceled, except we actually did Kennedy Center in October, which was weird because it's in the Opera House of the Kennedy Center, but they're allowed to only have 50 people in that space. But that happened, and actually they recorded the concert and they put it on the Talk of the Nation. In the NPR. I think it's still on their website. You can go and listen to it.
Cool.
Yeah, that was a great concert. And then we did something at the gallery and live streamed it. But so this year is our 26th year, and we're hoping to do some celebratory things. I don't know, maybe that didn't happen last year.
Yeah.
But so it's been 25 years, and for any not-for-profit organization to survive that long, is a feat. But in New York, and one that's dedicated to jazz to survive quarter centuries, it's not easy.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Yeah. It's I mean, well, I feel like thanking you, and then I was thinking, well, my thanks, big deal. But I'm going to thank you anyway. I'm going to thank you as a person who's been a jazz person, and I've been into other music too and stuff, but I've always been a jazz person from when I was born, and I've been involved in a lot of different productions and stuff, and I've seen a lot of different things, and I just feel like thanking you on behalf of myself and my universe, whatever that includes. But I just think it's amazing. And I'm sure you get this a lot. I'm sure you get a lot of appreciation. But I know, personally, because people do that to me too. It's meaningful each time. One person says it to you because you
totally.
Get the hit again. And so I'm thanking you for all the people that I've known too, because I know how much love and dedication, commitment, and actual physical work and mind work, spiritual work that all takes. So thank you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, when people thank me, it's weird for me because I'm just doing what I like to do, and I'm getting paid, and you're thanking me on top of it. It's like, well, okay, I take it, but all right,
But
so.
I mean, acknowledgement is a good thing, you
Oh yeah,
know?
totally, totally.
So yes,
Yeah,
but I understand your point of view totally. I really
yeah.
do. But yeah, I think it's nice for acknowledgement to happen.
Mhm.
It's kind of like I realized when I got a divorce how many people were affected by my divorce, even though I had a bad marriage.
Mhm.
Because when I got married, that agreement was there. The acknowledgement
Mhm.
and agreement was there.
Mhm.
And that clicked in things to people who knew about it,
Mhm.
And so I think acknowledgement is like that. I think
Mhm.
for people to acknowledge you is clicking in for them. It's clicking
Mhm.
in other realities that are
Mhm.
connected, and
Mhm.
for you too. It's a beautiful responsibility, that you've taken on. That is, I think, I love the idea of responsibility. I think it's a very, it's funny because when I came up, my mother she was a very manipulative person. She had her reasons, but extremely manipulative, and
Mhm.
I was a free soul, right? So
Mhm.
she manipulated me even more because she was afraid I was going to turn out like my dad. So, but what I was going to say was that the word responsibility was drummed into me from her, and I hated it for
Mhm.
the longest time until I was probably in my 20s when I really finally understood what the word actually meant, that it was a
Mhm.
real personal issue. It wasn't something somebody else could,
Mhm. Mhm.
push on you and say, you're
Right.
responsible for this. And then I really loved the word responsibility. So I started really at that time looking for everything I could possibly be responsible that I knew about, in my
Mhm.
life that I could
Mhm.
see.
Mhm.
And so for you, you know, and I don't want to put words in your mouth or imagine this is true for you necessarily, but I think on some level you must have realized, oh, I can do this,
Mhm.
so I should because it's good. I'm just
Yeah,
guessing.
yeah. And also, I realized that all the freedom that I enjoy comes with a lot of responsibility too. And when you're creating something, it's great when everything is great, it's all yours. But when things are not going well, it's yours too. And that's hard too. But
Yeah.
you have to be willing to carry both for things to you know take its life. So yeah, yeah. But I don't know. I mean, I think for me, it's I have been having so much fun all this time. I mean, yes, sometimes it's like just walking through the mud, but and then the amazing thing is I recently realized that even throughout all this financial difficulty the jazz gallery has been experiencing, and then at one point we had to move with no money in the bank. I mean, that's another miraculous thing. Like, I didn't know how this was going to happen, but it did happen, and we never cancel a gig except until when the COVID hit in 25
Wow.
years. We never canceled the gig. And I just have to think that somehow I'm protected in that way, and I have a faith that it will be okay. It will work out. But yeah, I mean, COVID was the first time we just actually had to cancel gig, and that hurts my ego. Pandemic, no, but
That's
this pandemic,
amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's really amazing.
yeah. I just realized recently, but then also, I think the pandemic for the jazz gallery, we went into survival mode, but at the same time, there was a silver. I mean, the thing is, there's always everything, nothing cuts one way, everything cuts both ways, you know what I mean? And it's always good and there's always bad. And it's really how you deal with what you are dealt with. And I think that, you know, except for the fact that we weren't able to have a performance with audience, we, like me personally, and we as the organization, we have learned a lot about ourselves and, you know, what we can do, and we kind of like see how we can grow from here. So this hasn't all been terrible. There have been some silver lining, which is I'm very thankful for that too.
Yeah. That's so valuable. Um, yeah, I what comes to mind also, I don't, you probably have heard of the Blue Whale here in LA.
Yeah.
So the Blue Whale was started by June Lee, who actually was my previous student. And
Wow.
yeah, he showed up on my doorstep through Musicians Institute, which I used to teach for, and and he knew he knew he liked jazz, but that was about it. He used to go to the record stores at home, but you know, buy records for their covers, how they looked, and then he just listened. He wasn't really a musician or a singer, but he could sing, and his father had sent him to the U.S. for architectural school. And so he showed up at my door, and I said, "Well, let's sing. So I tried him out, and he was like, wow." And I said, "Can you scat?" And he said, "Well, no, not really." And I was like, "Okay, well, let's see." And he took a song, like, it wasn't just like Summertime. It was All the Things You Are.
Oh, wow.
And he did it. And so anyway, he became my student for a bunch of years. And then at some point, about 11 years ago, he said, "Kath," he said, I'm opening a club." And I said, "What?" What? And he went downtown and he found this space that had been a Japanese karaoke club.
That's fun.
Yeah, and he proceeded to redecorate the front part of it, because there was a back room that was a private karaoke room, which was really trippy. And yeah, it was a really beautiful room, and he wanted to really have it as a space for new, fresh, not only new kind of jazz, but also as a showcase for people, And so he kind of steered away from straight ahead jazz, unless it was a big band, really great big band, something like that. And yeah, he also was a person like, how we are speaking. He really went straight ahead. He went through a lot of difficult moments. His family supported him. The community really supported him. And yeah, it was really great. And recently he had spent a lot of time back in Korea. And I think it was probably family kind of stuff that he felt responsible for and wanted to be there for them. And then he held on for a while this year, and then finally he let it go. I know the rent was huge, and with nothing really happening, and and he was a person who didn't reach out that much for assistance, so you really had to force your assistance on him, which musicians did, and they accomplished, some jazz funding and stuff like that, but probably could have been more, but, it was just time in his life to go on and let it go. But it was quite the beautiful creation,
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loved playing Blue Whale.
Yeah.
When you're in LA, Blue Whale was the place.
Yeah. Yeah. Really great. So, and do you live in New York City, or do you live out?
I live in Jersey, across the river.
I see.
Do you know where the George Washington Bridge is?
Yes.
So when you cross the George Washington Bridge, I live right by the bridge. Area is called Fort Lee.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I like it. School's really good, and I'm practically in New York City. Like, you can walk to the city, cross the bridge if you want to.
Yeah, yeah.
And and I moved to Jersey when I got pregnant with my daughter, And initially, I'm like, I don't want to go to Jersey, but it's actually really nice here, and I like the peace and quiet I get here.
Well, being from Boston, in the old days, Jersey was kind of hodunk. You know what I mean? Rhode Island was hodunk. Rhode Island was thought of as the armpit of the Northeast. And but I think over time, it's changed just because the universe has changed, people have changed, and also being so close to New York, that part of Jersey, I'm sure is affected. Like the Bronx and the Harlem and the parts of the city that were earlier maybe a little less sophisticated or whatever however you want to put it. Yeah, it's really great. So I'm curious if you said you kind of you have a mixture of people up here. So I'm wondering if you have people like, or even them, like Sheila Jordan or Jay Clayton, those kind of singers. Do you have those kind of people in your roster as well?
Well, the thing is, like in the past 20 years, my goal is to keep the door open, which means that I have to be mindful what I pay the artist. I mean, okay, let me go back. So when Dale gave me a reign of the Jazz Gallery, I mean, even now we run very, very lean, but back 20 years ago, there's really no budget to speak of. Yeah. So then I was thinking, okay, so I really have no money to work with, and how can I present a good music with the budget that I have or I don't have? So then I thought that New York City have a lot of young musicians who are more keen on the opportunity rather than how much money they have in their pocket at the end of the night. So then, the financial constraint gave me a direction. And, I really never thought of Jazz Gallery as, I want to create the space where the young people, young musicians cut their teeth. But because of the financial constraint, that kind of became a thing. And, that's how, back in like early 2000, all the young musicians who were new in town, I mentioned Vijay, Rudrish, Yasvani, Jason Moran, Gretchen, Lionel, Gerald Clinton, Ambrose, Avishai, both Avishai. I mean, all these people that went through the gallery because they just wanted to, place to play and be taken seriously, have a platform. But, we didn't have money to pay them fair, what I think they should be paid. And then, unfortunate thing is that you can't really negotiate your rent. You can't really negotiate your electricity. You can't really negotiate insurance. Only place there's a wiggle room is a human resources. That means what I get paid, what artists get paid. And then that was a place that, we can just cut really lean. And so with the young artists, because I know that they want to be heard and they want to perform, either they approach me or I approach them. I don't feel particularly horrible about amount of money we're not able to pay, because at the end of the day, I want to keep the Jazz Gallery's door open. But after certain caliber of artists, I would not approach them on my own because I think it's disrespectful considering the funds that we don't have. But, when I started doing this, I realized that integrity and quality, those are my currency. So then, the people watching what you do, an older musician of certain caliber will begin to approach me and say, hey, I want to play at the Jazz Gallery. I say, I would love to have you, but this is the best we can do financially. If that's okay with you, I'd love to have you. And, half of them will say, I don't care about money. I just need to work something out. And I want to have a, reputable space presenting me. But not too big so that their exposure is minimal when they're working out their stuff. And half the people say, I didn't know. Yeah, I can't play for that kind of money. I say, I'm glad that we talked about this. We're on the same page. So to answer your question, no, because I'm never going to approach them from my end.
I see.
And if they come to me and they say, I need a space to work something out before we go into studio, and I say, this is the money we can pay. If they say, that's fine, then it will happen. I mean, before he passed away, John Hendricks performed at the gallery a few times. And I was shocked that, I got a call from his management. It's like, well, I don't know if you knew, but towards the end, he was singing strong, but I think that he had a little bit of dementia. So then I think the management did not want to put him on the big stage where he could be exposed, but he still wanted to sing because that was the one thing that kept him going. So then, they felt, we could go to the gallery because, they're reputable, but small, and then John could still sing. So these things, happens. And also, I don't know why, but Henry Threadgill will agree to play. Henry doesn't play anywhere, but somehow I think that he considered it worthy cause to have his name associated with it. So I'm very thankful that Henry brings the project to our space. And then also, a lot of artists who graduated from the Jazz Gallery, now, they'll come back and do the fundraiser for us. So, I mean, the way I look at it, everything is, you have to look at everything in the long term in this business. You can worry about how many people are in the room today because then you're not building anything. So when,
I totally understand that too. And I've I guess maybe I could say I've fought with myself in my mind because I'm a performer and I'm a venue producer. And I personally, and it's not because I'm a singer, because I know singers who don't think like me, but I have always wanted to play. And that's part of the reason why I'm still here and why over the years people thought I was busy and why people kept saying, how do you do what you do? It's because I want to keep creating. That's what I think is the important thing. And sometimes you have to give a little to get a little. And, creating a venue where you're making the door, and I have to take a little bit to pay the lighting person and the sound person, and a little for myself because I'm over, not taking anything. And then it's all yours after that, and some people that was fabulous for them, and some people, it was okay. I mean, they still wanted to do it, but it wasn't financially fabulous, but it was good. And like you, I'm sure you understand all the various reasons. And then some people, and the same with it being a singer, when I would ask somebody to play with me and it wasn't really a high paying gig, some people would say no. And some people would say, yeah. So of course I went with the yes, and I didn't worry about the no's. And, and I don't blame people for it, same as you. It's just if you can't do it for your own personal reasons, that's your life and your opinions.
Totally
But
fine.
it's not going to stop me, It was like when I was coming up, and there was a period of time, probably in the 80s, that for some reason, there were a lot of asshole club owners, and a lot of my friends were complaining and stopping performing. And I was like, I'm not going to stop performing because there's idiot people around. I'll just find something else, I'm not going to do that. So I like that attitude, and I think that a lot of young artists feel like that. Maybe not the ones who are like kind of more successful, who are touring and have managers and stuff like that. But I think that there are a lot of young artists coming up who feel like, which it makes me happy because it'll continue.
Yeah.
Well,
And,
go ahead.
I was going to say, just, don't, money will come when it's supposed to
Yes.
come. Don't
Yes.
chase the money. That's the point. But
Yes, absolutely. I don't know if you're familiar with David Amram. So I had him on. What a joyful conversation that was. So he's 90, and
Wow.
he has 10 projects going on, and he wants
Oh
to
my God.
create.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So you're right. It's like it's about the creation, and he also said he got a scholarship in hangoutology because he would just go hang out. Like he hung out with Charlie Parker, and Charlie Mingus happened to come in and came over to talk, and Charlie Parker introduced him, and he said, and David Amram was the French horn player on all of the old bebop recordings. He was the guy because of this just kind of hanging out and meeting
Yeah.
people, not even
Yeah.
them hearing him,
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's all it's a forward motion kind of a thing. It's
Yeah.
and you have to I think that might be a difficult thing for people to get back into now, after being a year, just kind of hanging out and not doing things or doing whatever they want, like kind of a sabbatical. And I think that's what I'm seeing people talk about. It's like, yeah, I could go out, but do I want to go out? Those kind of things, and performing and creating things. But
Yeah.
I'm not worried about you at all because you're definitely a forward motion person.
Yeah. Just one foot in front of the other. Kids ask me, so, what's the secret of success? I'm like, don't quit. Like, that's it. And that's really true. Just not quitting.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And I read a great quote, which was that creativity was curiosity. And
Yeah.
I mean, we're curious every single day, but we may not give it that much significance, but it is significant, actually.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, boy, thank you so much for giving me 2 hours of your time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's just lovely to talk to you. And yeah, I was so excited because on so many different points I could relate to you. And now I'm a more of a fan. Is it a subscriber that you have to become to the Jazz Gallery? Because I'm going to become one if it
Oh, no,
is.
no, you don't have to, but it will help us if you become one.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been just really wonderful, wonderful,
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you so much and taking time. And thank you for doing this. It's great.
Oh, you're welcome. Tomorrow live, I'm going to have Brian Charette on. Are you familiar with him?
Nice.
Yeah.
I know his name, but I don't.
He's a B3 player mostly, and he's really good, and he's a New York person. And I have Thursday through Sunday. Usually, I'm having from my archives, so I just post at 12 o'clock the same, so people can just come on at 12.
Oh, I
And
see.
I have Nick Mancini, great vibes player, Russell Ferrante, great piano player from the Yellow Jackets, Peter Eldridge, I'm sure you know
Yeah.
the singer Peter Eldridge, and a singer who's kind of like us, but in kind of a business person, but in the kind of folk and acoustic rock West Coast kind of thing. Although she has moved into the middle of the country, but still, that's the kind of person she is. And anyway, thank you so much.
Thank
Everybody have a
you.
great day and
Yeah,
have a
thanks
great
for
evening.
watching. All
Yeah.
right. Take care.
Bye. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.